with the recent release of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster, and just because of the fact I haven't made one of these in about 2 years, I decided to come back to Elder Kings 2 and give you a list of 10 interesting characters that I think you should try in one of your next runs. Our first character, and these are going to be in alphabetical order based on their province, so not by character, but just by what province they're in. So down here in Black Marsh, we're going to begin with the one, the only White Queen. And the White Queen is an interesting character because she's an Argonian. Obviously, she's on this island at the very southern end of Black Marsh, so basically away from all of this stuff. Although, truthfully, most of Black Marsh is just a bunch of islands because it's like a big swamp. But she is a necromancer. She's also a lich, so she is immortal. I really like playing as liches in Elder Kings 2. I had a blast after the update when they sort of boosted their abilities. Being able to summon huge army stacks, even if they're just crappy zombies, is a ton of fun. Not to mention the fact that you're immortal, so you have a lot more leeway with what you can do and like how fast you want to go. Black Marsh is sort of a maelstrom of just horrific, awful proportions. There's so many strong factions down here, and they get crazy bonuses because Argonians do not want to be kicked out of here. Thankfully, you're also an Argonian, so you get the same men-at-arms. But once you get the ball rolling and you really start picking up steam, take a couple counties, you'll start taking over the kingdoms pretty quickly, and it's a lot of fun. You could obviously be, a good undead necromancer queen of Black Marsh, but I don't think that you would be doing that. I wouldn't be doing that. I think you should really lean into it, lean into their ghost hist faith, where they essentially, from what I understand about the faith, they steal the souls of other Argonians from other histories and give it to their own history, which is crazy. And I believe she also has a couple interesting artifacts like this skull, which is cool, that she starts off with, somebody's skull that they turned into gold to increase their magical ability. She's a strong mage. A lot of fun. I highly recommend liches. There's a couple different liches on this list, and I'll try to give you reasons for playing as them. This one's just cool because they happen to be an Argonian, and I think Argonians are underutilized or underrepresented in the world in general. Our next pick is going to be over here in Hammerfell. It's basically the very, very edge of Hammerfell. I think this is technically Calovia, or very close to it anyway. And this is Archmage Felix Blackcaster of the Blackcaster Mages. And the Blackcaster Mages are basically just mages from the Mages Guild who broke away to form their own Mages Guild because they felt it was too restrictive. So this is an Imperial, a Colovian. Don't think this counts as Calovia. I think this is just Hammerfell. I think he just happens to be a Colovian. That's right. And it's interesting because you're playing as a Mages Guild title, but you're also a really pretty formidable mage, 17 Marcana. You can definitely get that up. He has his own unique nickname, so he's a unique character. And you get an interesting succession type, which is the elective, because you're essentially playing as a Mages Guild, not really the character. So you don't have to worry too much about having an heir unless you really want to keep it in the family, but you can kind of just be whoever you want. You do have the added issue that Mana Marco is right here, so that is something that you're going to have to deal with early on in the game. Get rid of him so that you can hopefully not get taken over by him, but they're usually really strong. If Mana Marco doesn't do it, then the Blackcaster Mages Guild generally takes over like half of Hammerfell, like all of this in my runs. So they're very powerful, very fun start if you want to play something magically focused and you want to play as like sort of a guild. You're kind of playing as a group rather than an individual, but Archmage Felix is very powerful in his own right and a lot of fun to play. So next we're going to be coming up here in Pemmarch in Hierrock, and this is Soule the Sightless. She is a very powerful mage, and also, if I'm not mistaken, I think she's a vampire. Yeah, she's a secret vampire. So you are an immortal mage who's only 28 years old who will live forever. And from what I understand, this is a character who is based on one of the developers' Elder Scrolls Online characters, which is kind of interesting. So they started off basically as a test character, I think in Elder Kings 1, and then they sort of evolved and became a fan favorite because they are quite capable. They have pretty great stats, 27 Arcana, which is crazy. They also practice the Breton Rite. They're also over here in Hierrock, which I think is an area that's ripe for the picking. I really like playing over here because it's a lot like base CK3. So if you're not too familiar with Elder Kings or like Elder Scrolls lore in general, this is a very good area to start off in to sort of like get your feet wet. It's very much like feudal Europe over here if you've ever played. And then you have interesting people like the Durrani nearby, which are always fun and something that you can shoot for if you want to like have an interesting capital. You could just take it down over here. Powerful character, a vampire to boot, a secret vampire to boot, who has quite a few interesting traits like Aspiring Blade Master, Novice Physician, Wise Woman, Intelligent, all kinds of stuff, really. I think that this is a fun character if you want to play a powerful mage. There's been a theme of powerful mages on this list, which is, I think it's just because the magic system is a lot of fun. I just tend to prefer to play mages in Elder Kings 2 because it gives you just a little bit more to do, especially if you add in some mods or something to the mix, like sub-mods that add alchemy or anything else, then it can be even more fun. But even just base Elder Kings 2, magic is a ton of fun to mess around with, and especially up here where there's so many things, so much trouble to get into. Next, we're coming up to Morowind, where there's actually going to be 3 different characters, but the first one is going to be Sourus of Voss. This is Sourus Telvanni, so he was the heir to the Telvanni house, but he decided that he wanted to be a necromancer. And so he was exiled. So he was kicked out, and he basically lives over here in exile. Now, the only thing that sucks about this character is that he is 460 years old. He's nearing the end of his natural lifespan, and as you can see, he's disinherited. He's also an experimentalist because he likes to mess around with magic. Again, really like mage characters. I really like necromancers because they get a little extra bonus tree, and they can become liches, which is kind of what you have to do with this character. This is a bit of a harder start. Any heir you have will worship Tribunal Temple, unless you can somehow convince them not to, but your player heir is a Tribunal Temple enthusiast who is a legitimized bastard. So it's a bit of a challenge. You have to work on getting this guy to become a lich, or trying to maybe convert somebody else in your house, like trying to convince them to come see you and then convert them to your ways and make them become a necromancer when they're young. It's really up to you, but this is a great area. I love playing up here in Soulstein in particular. There's a ton of stuff to raid up here, which you wouldn't really do with this kind of character. I don't think you can do it, in fact, but that's just like a digression. I think that it's fun if you want to play like this pirate guy over here. He's a lot of fun. But Saurus, cool character, a cool backstory, cool incentive. So you could basically be like, I'm going to retake my old house, which is Telvanni. And especially once they add house mechanics, which I know is going to be in a future update, like not too far in the future, I would hope, I think within like a year. So this will give you even more incentive to try to become the head of a major house, because they'll have their own unique mechanics. So it's a no-brainer. Next, we're going to come down here to Kogarun, and this is Mistress Aramia of the House of Drinith. Now, this is a descendant of Dagoth-Ur, from what I understand, and they worship the sixth house, which I am the Sharmat. I am older than music. What I bring is light. What I bring is a star. What I bring is an ancient sea. And this is the faith of Dagoth-Ur. So basically you worship Dagoth-Ur as a god, and you do have Scarab's blood. So this is correct, yes. So they are descended from the House of Dagoth. And I think they might be the last descendant of the House of Dagoth, but you can have children who also will get that Scarab's blood. So there you go. So she's not. I was lying to you. But what's interesting is that you can have the perfect incentive here. Like the Tribunal Temple, for all intents and purposes, betrayed Dagoth-Ur and the Nerevarine, and this is kind of why Dagoth becomes twisted and comes back, right? So you could take over the Ashlands and then storm to the south, take over Vivec, which again, on the map model on the game, I just want to point this out, it's beautiful. Take over Vivec, take over Morowind, at least take over Vvardenfell, and make it a proper seat for the second coming of your ancestor, Dagoth-Ur, which I think is a no-brainer. Really cool playthrough. Again, a lot of great story-driven incentives for these characters up here in Morrowind, because Morrowind's just a maelstrom, and I'm more familiar with it because I love the game. So there you go, that's the second character. And the final character over here in Morrowind is actually not anybody super specific. It's just this chieftain, this single mountain orc clan that lives here right next to House Redoran. And what's interesting is that this is probably one of the harder starts that I've put on this list, because you have House Redoran right here who does not like you. But you have this war going on over here in Cyrodiil, and if the Akaviri Potentate loses, this is all ripe for the raiding, ripe for the picking, and you can really make yourself a nice chunk of land up here in the north, what would this be, the northeastern part of Cyrodiil. I think you can reestablish Orsinium anywhere, so I mean, why not just do it here or anywhere you want? You could try and become strong enough to take on House Redoran properly and take up the entire western side of Morrowind if you wanted to, but this is more or less a start for somebody who doesn't want to have too much story incentive, too much maybe pressure to do what the character would do, and kind of just wants to do whatever they want. I love orcs, as you guys know, they're my favorite race in the Elder Scrolls, so I had to include one on this list. And rather than doing one over here where I typically point them out, or like over here in Skyrim, I wanted to give you one that's in a little bit of a different situation and has a little bit more pressure to sort of move quickly and expand and grow and be strong. So something to keep in mind, all of these starts have been in the 440 start. Most of them are in the 450 start as well, but it's just easier because I think the 440 start is more interesting because you have the Colovians fighting the Akaviri, which is a lot of fun. But a character I want to point out over here, and Skyrim is our next area anyway, and this is Priest Torvanex. Now, technically, he holds this region up here, so he's a theocracy, so you can't actually play as him. However, this guy's really interesting because he's the last dragon cultist, and I think when you go to the 450 start, I think you're able to play as him, but I want to point him out and keep him in mind because we're going to jump to the 450 starts now. And if I'm right, he'll show up again on this list. But if I'm not, in the 440 start, you could still use the debug and make this guy landless and sort of start spreading the dragon cult and also hopefully become a lich, because he is a necromancer. He's 82, and you probably have a little bit of time because I think his lifespan's like 100 something. Yeah, he's got like a little bit extra blood, maybe. Might live into his early hundreds. Yeah, so this character is really cool. Becoming a dragon like cultist king or emperor of Skyrim, or high king rather of Skyrim, is really, really cool. You do get a dragon mask and all that stuff. So let me jump ahead, and if you don't see him again, just keep in mind what I said. He's still a pick for me because I think he's cool, but you kind of have to do it in a roundabout way. Okay, so yeah, so for those of you wondering about Elderblood Peak, I think he is just in the 440 start because I don't see him on here right now. There are a couple Dragon Cultists, but I think they're mostly just courtiers. So I would play as him. I would just use Debug to make him like a landless adventurer and then try to make him into a Lich so that he can live a little bit longer and then re-land him. And then start taking over Skyrim. That's what I would do as a recommendation. And speaking of landless characters, I want to point out this is probably, no joke, this is probably my favorite start in Elder Kings 2. And I know it's taken me a while to get to him. You'd think I would have started off with it, but I wanted to try to keep this alphabetical. This is, well, at least alphabetical by region. This is Prince Yolan Hafmir of Hjalmarch. This is Yolan Ivoryblood. So he is the son of the Queen of Hjalmarch. And he's also the son of Solius, or Solius, I don't know how you say his name. Solilus. He is the like right-hand man basically of Grand Admiral Velik, which I think is really funny. So he has kind of an interesting like past. He is a bastard founder and he also has quite a long lifespan. So I've played this character in 2 separate videos, which I'll show up on screen here if you've never seen them. One of them where I basically retake his kingdom, and another one where I take over Skyrim completely, and it's a ton of fun. I really love this character. The one I had was more war focused. This one is an indulgent wastrel, and he has kind of crap stats, so I would just probably re-roll that until you get something better. But overall, he's just a really fun, really interesting character who has a lot of incentive to not only wander the world because you are just like, you know, this bastard that has no inheritance, but also you do have the incentive to come back here and take back your kingdom, because I do believe once your mother dies, you get a pressed claim on the Kingdom of Hjalmarch. So what I did is I like wandered the world, and then I came back, and then I retook it after I was strong enough. I think I waited like 30 or 40 years in game. So you still get the adventure, and then you also get the glory of coming back and, you know, like reestablishing yourself. It's a ton of fun. And even though I know people, they kind of lose their minds about him being a half-mare, I do believe there's some lore that might suggest that these exist like very loose, very little bit of it, but I think it's fun, and taking over Skyrim as a half-elf is also really funny. So there you go. And our final one up here in Skyrim is actually a Reach folk, and this is a really, really cool character, and I love the Reach in general. This is probably one of my favorite regions in all of the Elder Scrolls lore in general, just because it's such a maelstrom of just crap. So much crap goes on over here. It's a nightmare just to even play the thing. But he starts off with my favorite city, which is Markarth. So he already gets a point. He's also a bastard founder. He is a kinslayer. So a lot of things to keep in mind. He killed his dad, right? This is his father, which was King Lodvar of the Reach. So this is the Reach Breaker. He essentially like broke up a lot of the tribes and then ended up making a kingdom for himself here in the Kingdom of the Reach. And what happened was he ended up doing something to his mother, which I'm sure you can, you can see. Here you go. And he wanted to seek revenge against the king for that. I think he is also in the other 440 start, which I think this king is still alive then. Yeah, he is. So in 442, he was burned to death. So if you wanted to play him, you can kind of play him in 2 different ways. You can play him in 440 and then seek revenge, or you can play him after his revenge and then try and reunite the Reach, which I think would be like his very obvious main goal. As like a Reach folk Druidic cultist, I think it's a really, really cool start. Trying to wrestle with the Reach and bring it under sway and just sort of like create anything out of it can be kind of a nightmare. This area is really difficult to just play in because it's just, I mean, you can see it's just rivers, rocks, hills, all kinds of crap. I think he does get some unique men-at-arms. So yeah, he does get Witchblades, which are Reach specific. And I think you can also unlock another one for them, if I'm not mistaken. And they also get a ton of unique decisions, well, not a ton, but uniting the Reach kingdoms can be like a long-term goal because you reunite like the Eastern Reach, which I believe is this, the Western Reach, and then the Southern Reach, and you can sort of make like a big empire of the Reach title, which is really, really cool. Oh no, it's a High Kingdom of the Reach, that's what it is, which is really, really sick. I think that's awesome, and I just love a character who's sort of like has sought their revenge or has like revenge to seek, and then is trying to basically establish themselves in this world. Now they don't have any bonuses, right? So they don't have like an extended life or anything because he's just a Reach folk, right? So like you kind of have to get moving, but the incentive is fun, trying to take over as much as you can, and then hopefully your dynasty, you know, your bloodline can hold on to the Reach, become high kings or high queens of the Reach, and then just establish peace for your people for many years to come. And the final character on this list is actually down here in Valenwood, which I don't normally recommend anything down here. I have recommended the Imga in the past, but this is our 10th character, and this is Treethane Nendare, the Ironbark of Vinedusk. And what I love about this character is specifically, he does not practice the Pact of the Green Pact, so they're sort of like away from it, they're sort of reluctant to join it, and he's trying to expel this guy, King Cicero of Southweld, from the region. So this is a Imperial, this is a Clovian. And this guy's idea is essentially that these people need to not be here anymore. He wants Valenwood to purely be just Wood Elves or, you know, whatever. And so his goal essentially is to expel these people from Southweld and to take this over, and maybe even expel some of the Khajiit as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, you could see the borders right here. So he would probably want to expel anybody that's coming up to this border that is not of, you know, like Bosmer lineage. So this guy, he might be like kind of racist, but you know, sometimes you got to play a racist in these games, right? He just wants his homeland to be, I don't know. He just doesn't want them there. It's kind of crazy. He's got a little bit of a negative trait, but he's a cool character. He's got this slick back hair, so you know he means business. And he does get access to some pretty sweet men-at-arms because the Bosmer stalkers are really good, and I think he can get a couple other ones if I'm not mistaken. But he is rivals and nemesis with this guy's children, so you have, again, another obvious incentive on what you need to do. You need to come over here, you need to give him the business here in Southweld, and then you can sort of go from there. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys like this video. I haven't made one of these in about 2 years, so I figured you might want to see me do something with it. Just give you like an updated list, add some more characters, and just overall, you know, maybe expand your knowledge of the world and some places that maybe you haven't tried. As always, I want to thank my channel members for their continued support, and I want to thank in particular my Paladin tier members, especially, I mean, all of you really, before I start naming your names. It's been a tough time over here in Tomato Land, not in a bad way, but just in a busy life way. So I appreciate you guys for supporting me and understanding when I have to decrease my output volume and even just make videos like this just because they're easier. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being so understanding. But in particular, I want to thank Dwayne the Rock Lobster, Zora, Luigi, Dunyal, Valadar, Lackland, Grazo, Rised, Titus, Furkan, J Dizzle, Ghidorah, and I believe Candriff, you also came back, so hello again, Candriff. You guys are amazing. If you'd like to become a channel member, or if you've ever considered becoming a channel member, you can do so through the membership tab. Nights and above get videos 2 to 3 days early, depending on how I'm feeling. That's it for me. As always, I'm Soul. This has been an Elder Kings 2 Starts I Recommend video, and I will happily see you in the next one.